We are back. It's the Joe Holka Show presented by Line Movement. It is Thanksgiving, so I had to make sure that we walk through each of these games for you guys. We're going to do a little bit of a betting twist, some bets against the spread. But obviously, throughout this entire year, we've been talking trade targets with my man Sigmund Bloom. But I figured there's probably no one else out there to walk through the Thanksgiving slate with game by game. So Sig, welcome back to the program. I know a lot of stuff going on this week in general in our industry. It's like having two main slates to talk about. But welcome in, man. This is going to be fun. A little different twist than before. But we always go off on tangents anyway, so this will be great.
Yeah, I'm happy to have any excuse to get to hang out with you on a Monday, Joe.
Yeah, good stuff. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to go through each game, like I said. So game one, I like to talk about it just by game one, game two, game three, because obviously a lot of my audience is playing DFS. So the first game, Houston at Detroit, both these teams below 500. This line did open as the Texans being a -2.5 favorite on the road. The over-under is 52. Some sharp action coming in on Detroit so far, which is interesting. Kind of betting against the public after a poor game is something that we do typically like to do. So the over is actually getting a decent percentage of the money right now. This game is interesting overall, Sig. So I think both of these defenses don't pressure very well, which is something that's interesting. Houston likes to kind of speed up the pace of games, 8th fastest team in neutral pace. I think that this is one where the pieces don't necessarily come together because you would like to have both these teams attack on the ground, right? So what was your initial thoughts when you saw Detroit was going to get Houston on Thanksgiving?
Just, I wish we had a better game to watch. The Lions, the last time we saw the Lions, they really look like a team that wants their coach to get fired. It was the single worst performance by any team this year. That includes any Jets game.
Wow.
It was, well, look, I mean, they lost 20-0 to a backup quarterback. And only because that backup quarterback threw two ridiculously bad interceptions it would have been 34-0 or 26-0. Even, this is how bad it was, Joe. They even had Matt Prater line up for the 51-yard, at least we won't get shut out field goal. He missed it. That was, so how can you possibly, it's the kind of game that if you do bet on Detroit, you can easily find yourself in the first quarter thinking, why did I bet on the worst team in the NFL the last time we watched football? Meanwhile, Deshaun Watson was ready to put the team on his back. Mm-hmm. He basically did. Even without Laramie Tunsil, he had all kinds of time to throw. And he made the Patriots defense look powerless to stop him. So I don't see the Lions defense that PJ Walker went up and down the field on doing much. So really, if you're betting Detroit, and also we have a 4-day turnaround. Will DeAndre Swift clear? So I haven't seen the Detroit practice report yet. Mm-hmm. Will DeAndre Swift clear concussion protocol? I don't think we're going to see Kenny Golladay. I don't think we're going to see Danny Amendola. I would say my colleague, Dr. Gene Bramwell back at Football Guys, if these guys don't at least practice in a limited fashion today. So even if you say it wasn't just that they want Matt Patricia to get fired, but it's that, well, what's Matthew Stafford going to do without those pieces? Well, what are the chances he's going to have those pieces against the Texans? Who are soft against the run, but so were the Panthers.
Yep.
And Peterson and Kerryon Johnson didn't do anything. So I understand the idea that, hey, it's a reset, it's a new week, Detroit, Thanksgiving, they're used to the schedule. I'm sure there are lots of reasons that you could build for the Sharps to be on Detroit. I just can't get behind a team that's playing their worst football of the year going into the game.
I'm with you, and you mentioned the fact that Watson had a lot of success last week against this New England team. Like, one thing that's interesting about New England is they play more man coverage than any team in the league. Who plays the second most amount of man coverage? It's this Detroit team, right? So the pieces come together. I think that always usually helps the floor, definitely the ceiling from a rushing perspective for these quarterbacks. Like, if their eyes are basically facing the other direction, Watson can just take off, get chunk yardage at will on the ground. So it's always one of the things that it's one of the first things I check for some of these rushing quarterbacks. Duke Johnson, after seeing the ball 20 times in week 9, 13.5 touches per game over the last two. Watson just doesn't really want to check it down, right? So it's an interesting one. Like, both these teams not very good against the run, but neither team really wants to run anyways. In terms of kind of the total, Sig, like, do you think there could be some points scored here? I guess you still, the Swift thing, I think, is a big part of this, because I think maybe that changes the whole dynamic of this Detroit offense. But Stafford kind of banged up. They're banged up across the board. And Houston, like, I mean, if they just want to slow things down a little bit, they don't normally do that. But this could be one that a 52 over under game number one. I think there's some volatility here in the total as well.
There is. And what really, you don't worry about the Houston side of it. You worry about the Detroit side of it. After, again, they got shut out. I think there was only one other team that got shut out this year so far. And Carolina's defense is not a juggernaut. It's probably, a few more standout players than Houston, although it's debatable. I mean, they're both like bottom 10 defenses in terms of personnel. So do you trust Matthew Stafford? Do you trust Darrell Bevell? Do you trust them to come in? You did see Cam Newton throw for like 360, although about 50, that was that Hail Mary. So about 300, which is a yeoman's task for Cam Newton in this pass offense. Who did he have to throw to? Demir Bird had a long touchdown in that one. But I would probably be thinking under, just because the Lions offense is the hope is the Lions defense is so bad that the Texans build a big enough lead that then the Lions offense can put up some garbage time points. Really, that would be your best path to an over in this one. And I don't want to bet on garbage time points.
Yeah, seems like kind of a stay away from the total for me. I think one of the things on the other side of it, I'm with you on the Texans, by the way, at -2.5. I think normally sometimes these trends can get you into trouble. Just looking at just like blindly betting against the public after a poor game does have a decent hit rate over like the long term. But like you said, like these guys aren't playing for this coach anymore. They're playing some of their worst football of the entire year. So I can't get behind that one. Let's move on to game number 2. Washington at Dallas. This line opened with the Cowboys as a 1-point home favorite. The over-under sitting at 47 at blitzbet.eu right now. So we are seeing some sharp action come in on Dallas early. 74% of the money, 61% of the bets. One of the things that I think is interesting about the total is these division game unders, Sig, like tend to hit at a very high rate because these teams know each other very well. What were your thoughts overall, this Washington at Dallas spot?
Well, this could be much different than the first matchup. I guess moving Zach Martin to right tackle just firmed everything up for this Dallas offensive line. Now it was Minnesota, on the other hand. So, how many players on Minnesota's defensive line are as good as the 4th best player on Washington's defensive line? I don't know. So this is one of those situations where everything looks like it's okay for this offense. Andy Dalton can sling it to, Mari Cooper and CeeDee Lamb, and there's big holes for Ezekiel Elliott and Tony Pollard. But then when they face the Washington defensive line, all of a sudden it doesn't look so good, and we're back to Andy Dalton's not going to be able to function behind this offensive line. Washington their offense has gotten regulated a bit with Alex Smith, and Antonio Gibson is continuing to make strides. Dallas's defense is still not good. We saw them also, I think, on a short week. They really had to expend a lot of energy to slow down Dalvin Cook.
Absolutely.
So Antonio Gibson is going to be a handful. I think that Washington has some advantages here, and I feel like they have the opportunity to win in the trenches on both sides of the ball. And I think that Alex Smith is passing a little more effectively. You have Terry McLaurin. I think Anthony Brown's going to be out for this one. Not that he's a shutdown corner or anything. You've got Terry McLaurin. You've got these ancillary pieces like Steven Sims and Cam Sims and Logan Thomas and J.D. McKissick. And as long as Alex Smith executes, I don't doubt that Washington's going to move the ball. I do wonder about Dallas's ability to move the ball against this pass rush, Chase Young and company, after we saw what they did. Oh, speaking of Joe's, just sending out the old prayers and for Bengals fans and for Joe Burrow after what we saw yesterday.
Right. Yeah, that's just tough for a guy that we've definitely been enjoying watching as a rookie. I think this is an interesting game. One of the things that people probably don't talk about enough is just how bad this Cowboys team has been on Thanksgiving. So that's interesting that the sharps are on them so far, obviously pretty early in that scenario. So I think that the argument in favor of Dallas in this spot is that, yes, exactly what you said. Maybe they did figure out the running game a little bit. And like, what's one of the best ways to combat a good pass rush is to run the ball very effectively. So Zeke, 20, and 23 touches over the last 3 games. So he's getting work. He's super cheap in DFS. I would say that Gibson is interesting as well. 17 touches in back-to-back games. I'm definitely on the under because I think both these teams could be running a decent amount in this one. So I think it just seems too high at 47 for me. But I could see Dallas covering here. So it sounds like maybe we're on opposite sides of that one. Any final thoughts on this game?
Oh, just that I'm not ready to buy Dallas yet. But then again, we're talking about Washington. I mean, that's the thing. It's so unpredictable. Joe, normally this would be a game that we'd be saying is for draft position, and it's potentially for first place in the division. So I'm confused.
Crazy. Confusing for sure. One thing that's also been very confusing this year is Lamar Jackson. And I know this next game is very close to your heart, Sig, as a lifelong Steelers fan. So we have Baltimore at Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh obviously 10-0, Baltimore 6-4. This line opened at -2.5 for the Steelers at home. The over-under is currently sitting at 45.5 at blitzbet.eu. Sig, the Sharps are hammering Pittsburgh in this one. 91% of the money, only 54% of the bet. So a lot of the public is kind of split on this, but the large majority of the large bets is coming in on Pittsburgh pretty significantly here. So it sounds like the Sharps do not believe that Lamar is right. I guess I kind of saw his pass completion rate getting better, and then last week takes a step back again. So what are your thoughts about this game, Lamar? It just doesn't feel the same as it did last year.
Yeah, and even going back to 2019, the Steelers really made him look bad. One of the only teams made him look bad in 2019. And in overtime, the Ravens won that game. The Steelers, I think, know how to get Lamar Jackson out of his mental comfort zone. Really, everybody does now. But they forced the issue with him, and I think they had 4 turnovers in that first game. The other thing is the Ravens are able to run the ball very much at will against the Steelers in the first game, which is not something we say very often anybody does against the Steelers. But they have Tyson Alualu back. They have Mike Hilton back. The Ravens have lost Nick Boyle, who's basically like an extra tackle in the running game since the last time these two teams met. And J.K. Dobbins and Mark Ingram are going to be on the COVID list. Brandon Williams is one of their big run stuffers. That's the other thing Ravens have trouble stopping the run. Not that the Steelers running game is red hot right now. We'll see if Calais Campbell will be ready to play. So it's a little different complexion in that first matchup. But in the first matchup, if the Steelers didn't force those 4 turnovers from Lamar Jackson, remember one was a pick 6, another one was a fumble like at the 10-yard line, another one was an interception deep in the Steelers, in the Ravens' end that the Steelers scored right away. The Steelers' offense was not able to do much against the Ravens, and the Ravens didn't have Marlon Humphrey for that game. And I don't know that the Steelers running game is going to be able to take it to them. We did see the Titans do well against the Ravens off play action, not necessarily a big part of the Steelers offense. Yeah, I'm just not confident that Ben Roethlisberger is going to be able to sit back there. And Yannick Ngakoue was not part of the first matchup. So I'm just not confident that Roethlisberger is going to be able to sit back there. I think that the Vegas actually has it right to have the over-under very low in this game. And just in terms of the rivalry, in terms of what's on the line, what's online for the Steelers? 10-0. I mean, I don't think the Steelers care about that.
Yeah.
I really think they don't care. They don't care about going 16-0. The Ravens, this is a game where they're almost fighting for their life now. As of this moment, they are on the outside looking in for the playoffs.
Yeah, for sure.
So I think this is more of a survival game for the Ravens than the Steelers. And unless the COVID close contact thing starts to take more key players out for the Ravens, it's probably that I'm an erotic Steelers fan, Joe. But I think that the Ravens, in a low-scoring game, maybe it's that Lamar Jackson's a little more unleashed as a runner in this one because of those losses in the backfield. That could be the difference.
Yeah, you said it. I mean, this Pittsburgh pressures so well that I think it probably just leads to more rushing from Lamar, which is going to lead to less plays. Baltimore already the 31st fastest in neutral pace this year. So maybe this ends up a game where there isn't a ton of plays. I've been saying it all week, Sig. Like, people are talking about this being like the Thanksgiving hammer. I don't necessarily think it that way. I think that this is going to be a clear under spot for me. Overall, I think the argument on the Pittsburgh side that is at least interesting is that one area, I guess, that Baltimore hasn't been very good is they are dead last in red zone touchdown rate allowed. So if the Steelers can actually reach the red zone, I think they have a good chance of turning those into some touchdowns. But overall, I don't have a lot to say about this game in terms of points. I guess I'll put you on the spot, Sig. Are you with your Steelers at -2.5, or is your brain telling you Baltimore, your heart telling you Pittsburgh kind of thing?
I mean, if I'm divorcing myself from the emotional weight and going to this game, the Steelers only giving 2.5. I know the home matchup is, what is? I mean, we can throw home road kind of out at the 3-point advantage and things like that. I would probably, if I was totally neutral this game, go with the Steelers just because there's a lot of things I think that are clicking for them that weren't the first time these two teams met. But there's still that cornered, wounded animal that the Ravens are that's difficult to see going down without a fight.
The Sharps are with you, Sig, so I'm with you on that. We'll close on this last question. If there's one game on Thanksgiving that you think has the potential to shoot out between these three, do you have any lean on one of those?
Yeah, I think it would be that Washington-Dallas game. Just because a question of Alex Smith being able to connect in the downfield passing game and Dallas able to protect Andy Dalton. Yeah, I think that one, we saw it yesterday with the Minnesota-Dallas game where you get into a back-and-forth game, and Terry McLaurin can easily play the role of Adam Thielen.
All right. He's Sigmund Bloom, co-owner of footballguys.com. Obviously, if you're serious about fantasy football, you know exactly what Football Guys is. That's where I started my entire journey with all of this. Sig, this was fun going through some of these games, talking through Thanksgiving, all that good stuff. Best of luck on this slate overall. But most of all, just enjoy your Thanksgiving, my man. Appreciate it.
Happy Thanksgiving to you and all the wonderful people that join us every week.